Hi, friends. Welcome to another new episode of Global AI, the podcast. I'm Arafat, Microsoft MVP in Artificial Intelligence, based in Sydney, Australia. Today, I have a fantastic guest with us who has created a big boom in the spreadsheets world, be it Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. He has transformed the world with the Excel by creating a bot that would allow you to write your plain English and then turn into the formulas. So, welcome, David. Welcome to the Global AI, the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and we'll just start with with a bit of yourself. Where are you based? What do you do for a living?
Yeah, sure. David Bressler. I live in Orlando, Florida. My full time job, I do marketing analytics for an agency called Net Conversion. We do a lot of work around media and data analytics, data management, data science, analytics architecture, with a heavy focus in digital media and website analytics.
Oh wow! So too much of analytics, and what you created was all around AI. So yeah, we'll go to that. But first of all, like let's start with the Excel formula bot, if that's the correct name.
Yeah.
I've taken about. So Excel formula bot. How did this idea of creating this bot come into your mind?
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's it's a great story. It's amazing what the mind can come up with when you're not working a full time job. I have a full time job. I've been with the company I'm with for over 6 years. But a few months ago, I have a 3 year old and a 6 month old, and so 6 months ago I started paternity leave, in which there's definitely some sleepless nights in there, but I was on paternity leave. I wasn't thinking about work. Babies sleep a lot. They do. Some do, at least. Mine did. And with that time, my wheels just started spinning, doing analytics. Kind of naturally gravitated of going in this black hole of getting deeper into AI. I am not a data scientist. I am not a software engineer. But I started going down this avenue of learning more about AI, Open AI, GPT, and then also the wheels are always spinning. Like, yes, I have a full time job, but I've always had this kind of entrepreneurial knack to me, and so I follow a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of these solopreneurs that created their own business and it's just themselves. And a lot of them talk about some of the technology that they use, and they are people just like myself who have an idea, who don't know a lot of coding, and so I kind of put some things together. This web application that has an API integration, Open AI, GPT, started playing around with some things, and I started asking it questions. And I asked the question, very basic: what's the Excel formula for the average of column A? And it was right. And then I started getting harder and harder questions, and it started working. And then, of course, the natural thing you do is start to Google and see if this already exists. And I couldn't find anything. And I decided to build it. I built it, and the one thing that actually no one really knows is I actually asked OpenAI, "Hey," I said, "Hey, I built this thing. What should I name it?" And it literally came up with excelformulabot.com. And so not only is GPT the backbone of the technology, but it also created the brand name.
Wow. And this is very interesting that what people like yourself who are not software engineers or who is not into the artificial intelligence domain can create such a big impact just with the democratization of this technology. And absolutely, you are the true example of that and a working example of that. So when I saw this on the social network, I was like, it was like it would just be a small utility people are just showing off on their socials, like on shorts, on TikToks. But I later on figured out that, oh wow, this is a pro website where you have got licensing model and everything. Um, so I I get your point where you said that, okay, I just went to GPT-3, you wrote a question, it gave an answer, but where do you want to actually take it, this bot to?
Yeah, I mean, one, I wanted to build something cool. I think I did that, but there's more behind it. People don't start businesses just to start a business, and so I've been working in marketing analytics for 11 years, and you've got people that anywhere from a CEO to a data analyst. At the end of the
Mhm.
day, everyone uses Excel.
That's right.
And so I just, again, based upon what I've seen, I think there's a big barrier to entry to become an effective analyst. Uh, there's there's a big imbalance between where people are spending their time analyzing data and then actually dedicating time to look at the data to be proactive and do something about it, thinking strategically. And so Excel Formula Bot basically streamlines some of that process, especially around data prep, so that way you
Mhm.
can spend more time actually taking action. Um, Another thing that I've learned, and I didn't know this, I didn't think about this from the get go, but as the site's been around since really mid July, the one thing I've learned is, I kind of mentioned this barrier to entry to be an effective analyst because you're spending so much time cleaning and massaging the information, typically in Excel. But another
Yeah.
thing that I found is the barrier to entry to be an effective analyst is even higher for non English speakers because you got to
Mhm.
think so much of the educational content, the courses, the tips and tricks websites that are out there specific to Excel, they're all in English. But AI or open AI, you can speak any language and it translates the output. It translates it to English, but there are some things that I've done on my end. And so the the website resonates very well with international countries. It resonates very well with the Hispanic market. Last time I looked at it, a quarter of the users use a non-English browser. Non-English browser in which right now they can type their question into their own respective language, Spanish, Portuguese, German. The output, it translates everything into the English formula, but it does have the ability to translate it into their respective language. But
Mhm.
even though a quarter of the users are non-English,
Mhm.
oftentimes they use English formulas. So while it makes up a quarter, it only makes up 1% of the translations into other languages outside of English.
Yeah, makes sense, and you described it quite well in a absolutely analytical way. So that defines you, how pro are you when it comes to analytics. But these are the great pointers. Now, can I know, like, how many languages does it support right now, or it supports any language because of open AI GPT-3 model?
Yeah, so it supports, in terms of someone asking it a question, it supports all languages. But right now, it translates it, like I said, only in English. And so you can ask a question in Spanish, but the formula, not even the formula, but also there are instances because the website, you can request a formula, but you can also input a formula in which you're asking for an explanation of what the formula does. All of that is in English. But like I mentioned, it does have the ability to translate it. And so right now, even though you can ask it in any language, the formula translation is only in 13 languages, with English making up most of it, followed by Spanish, French, German, and Portuguese. Those kind of round out the top five.
Wow, and how many in total, like including English speaking people, how many users do you have right now who are currently using Excel Formula Bot?
How many users? So we have roughly in total since the website launched in July, we've had coming up on about 1 million people visit the website. But in total, there are about, I think it's around 100,000 people that have signed up. That number, when you take it at face value, that number is actually the number of emails is probably double that, but you get a lot of
Hmm.
people that were using fake email addresses. And
Hmm.
so when you boil it down to those that actually verified, it's about 100,000 users that are using it. Uh,
Hmm.
and it's awesome to see because I'll hop inside Google Analytics and it shows real time where people are from, what country, what state, and it's so cool to just see it light up across the entire world. Excel's one of the few things. It's kind of like sign language, where it's just a international language, and it truly is an international product. There are 750 million people in the world that have an active Excel license, and so my goal is to at least get 1% of them. Doesn't
All
sound like
right.
a lot, but it's a big number.
I think you will be able to secure more than 1% for sure, because it's quite handy for people even like me. I don't I don't recall that I know the formulas of like VLOOKUP in the complex way or things like that. So I think yeah, it is going to add a lot of value. But coming to the challenging part of it, like what do you see that have you got a mechanism of getting the feedback from users, or where do you see yourself that there is a potential challenge which we need to sort out before we get into the other step? I know I've seen the add-ons part on your website that you are bringing up add-ons to Google Sheets and Excel, but is this the key challenge for you to bring up, or is there anything else?
The add-on is a big component. I mean, you talk about barrier to entry. I mentioned all the variables earlier, but I know it sounds silly, but even having to when you're in the moment, when you're in Excel, you have to open up your web browser, you have to go to the website, you have to log in, you have to request it. There's a few steps, and my mission is to reduce the friction it takes to be an effective analyst, bring down that barrier to entry. And so it sounds so simple, but even putting the add-on in Excel will reduce some of that friction. So that is coming out the next couple of weeks for both Excel and Google Sheets, which I'm super excited about. Um, I've been, I think I've received, we were actually talking about it before the podcast started, but I've gone from 300 Twitter followers to about 1,600. I've received several thousand emails from random people all across the globe. I've translated probably 50 different languages from different emails and tweets and people DMing me. Google Translate and myself have been pretty close these past couple of months. But I am trying to
Yeah.
literally answer every single person. I don't think there's been one person that's reached out that I haven't responded to. And I have a laundry list of things that people have been requesting that I've just been making a list of and seeing if there's any commonalities or if other people are requesting these things. And so, for example, one was people were like, "Hey, the formulas are great, but I'm more of a on the engineer side. I'm responsible for automation. What can you do for VBA? There's a lot of things that are being
Hmm.
done in Excel that can't be done through a formula. I feel like
Yeah.
one of the most common formula requests that we get is if this number is greater than this number, highlight the cell red. Well, you can't do conditional formatting in a formula. And it's
Yeah.
funny because I look at the feedback of was this request, did, was the formula correct or not? And I try to look at the ones that are not correct because I want to fine tune and improve the model results. and it's people asking to make this text bold or make this cell red, and I'm like, you can't do that. And so by looking at that and then looking at a lot of the feedback that we got, we did add. It's kind of in beta right now. There's a lot of red tape. There's a disclaimer that says like it is in training mode right now, but there is a VBA generator on the site as well. And so really, it's just me exhaustingly
Cool.
listening to everyone and translating languages to hopefully accommodate all the different asks that are being asked upon me and Excel Formula Bot.
Yeah, no, it's I think your approach of responding back to everyone, this is really nice. I know that it can become a very tricky situation where you will get like 100,000 emails one day, but till the time you are able to manage it, I think it's really nice to interact and learn from the users. Yes, there can be other feedback mechanisms. People may argue, but we will not go into that. So, getting into the technical part of it, I know you are not a software engineer. Yes, you can get a help from people to develop some couple of components for you, but I have read about it that I read about you that you have not used any code to create this specific Excel formula bot. So what's running behind the scenes when, yes, I also worked on OpenAI's GPT-3, but I had for a bot I had to create for Google Assistant and other channels for using Microsoft Bot framework, I had to write a significant amount of code. So how did you come up with this? Like, what is the architecture, technical architecture of it? If you can share it with us.
Yeah, for sure. So when I had this idea, I was using OpenAI's text API, the Da Vinci model, because Excel is kind of in that in between. I wouldn't really call it. It's not text. It's not
Yeah.
truly like English, but it's also not code. So it's sort of
Yeah.
in between. And so at that time, I didn't have Codex. I didn't have a beta. All I had
Mm-hmm.
was the text version. And so I was up late at night fixing all the formula requests that were coming in 2 o'clock in the morning, improving formulas. And then eventually I got access to Codex and I looked at the accuracy of that versus the text based one. And it skyrocketed to like 97, 98%. And so right now the backbone is OpenAI's Codex, and it integrates with a web application. It's designed for no coders. It does help to know a little bit of code, but it's
Mm-hmm.
called bubble.io.
Mm-hmm.
And then it has an integration with Stripe for payment processing. And then the only other platform that's used is the CRM tool Sendinblue for transactional emails. That's it. Pretty basic.
Yeah. But yes, it sounds basic. I
Yeah,
think
fair.
that's what yeah, that is what creating a value, right? So we don't have to create complex stuff just for the sake of it. But if the simplicity is making our world simpler and easier, then I think that should be great. Now, last couple of questions. What is your opinion on AI for formulas, code for the similar stuff? Like, I recorded one of the podcast episodes in the past with one of the teams who are creating helping software engineers to write better code, just with the use of other models, GPT, but it is GPT-C, I think. So and I asked the same question to them, and I'm putting this in front of you as well, that does it restrict the human creativity or boost this up? Because some people say that, oh, it is, I'm not able to think more now because machine is thinking for me. My whole logical power has gone to restriction or something like that. What is your take on that?
It's funny because one of my good friends yesterday, James, he texted me. He does a lot of work in Excel. He texted me. He says, "I hate you." I said, "Why?" And he said, "You're making me dumb. I don't even do the most basic of Excel formulas now. I just type it in to Excel formula bot and I copy and paste it. Um,
Mm,
I mean, I would say to answer your question, I would say it helps boost human creativity. And I think some of that is kind of full circle with what I was saying earlier. It reduces the barrier to entry to be an effective analyst. So that way you're
mm,
not, at least this application, I'll say restricting human creativity versus boosting it. I would say it's
mm,
subject to change based upon the value added for the application. But in this
mm,
one, I think it helps boost creativity. I would say AI and automation in general gives people more time to think and implement tactics and strategies based on that data. I mean, AI, it's come a long way. But at the same time, it's not in a place where you give it all of your company data and it says,
mm.
oh, here's the top 10 solutions to improve your business.
Yeah.
That's what Excel Formula Bot and other applications do. It reduces the amount of time to do all the kind of mundane things like cleaning up the data, and it lets you actually look at the data and think through how is this going to impact my business and actually making that impact.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And I think AI is is a two-edged sword, right? The and I remember reading about it that both of the blades of two-edge are very sharp. So we need to be mindful of how we are using it. But if you are absolutely right that it helps boost it up because humans can focus on what matters to them in the cognitive thinking way and the other domains. So absolutely agree with you. Now coming to the other part of the world, where do you have any competitors? How do you self yourself different if you have one? Because as you said that you googled it and you could not find it, probably that was the time that people started thinking, oh yes, he has created something, let me create something as well.
So I created this. I launched it July 20th. I posted it on Reddit, on the Excel subreddit, saying, "Hey, I made this cool thing. Check it out. Looking for some testers." That quickly turned into several hundred thousand people using it.
Mhm.
It spread on Reddit, TikTok, all that. And since then, I've found five other websites. Oftentimes, it's customers, users that email me and says, "Hey, I saw this. Just wanted to let you know." Um, and then other times, this one was more so recent. I do a lot of social listening. Like I mentioned earlier, I try to respond to
Mhm.
anything going on, but I'll do the same thing on Google where I'll go to Google and I'll search for Excel Formula Bot. I'll see
Mhm.
what websites
Mhm.
are talking about it. And I
Mhm.
saw one recently, I'm not going to name it, but one just popped up again just a couple of days ago in which it links out to my site for like competitive pricing and all that. And so with that, I have found five other competitors.
Wow.
In just a couple of months. Four of the five no longer exist. I've actually had conversations with three of the five. I've had conversations with them, and I think at the end of the day, I mean, for one, I I think AI. If you're developing an AI tool, you want to be first mover, in my opinion,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
what's going to differentiate it is having the most accurate results. I don't think it's going to come down to pricing. Pricing is always going to be a factor, but I
Mhm.
don't think you can price yourself out of an AI tool. It's going to come down to accuracy and
Yeah.
being the first mover. You having a lot of the data, being able to leverage that data for fine tuning. You're most likely going to have the best results. And so, like I said, there's been, from what I've found, five other competitors. Four go to a 404 page. It just doesn't exist anymore. There's
Mhm.
one still around. And I encourage competition. It also helps that Excel Formula Bot, it's a brand name, but it's also the category. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like cars.com, where even if someone sees the other competitor, they may not remember the name, and they'll type in, oh, Excel AI formula bot, and there's my site.
Yeah, yeah. I think time has it's not too far. Then people start naming you as the father of Excel bots because you created that, and then people will follow that. It's good that you have those competitions because then you can think of like where can I improve. Otherwise, you will always be in a goggle end of like yes, everything is good. I don't need anything.
Yep.
Everything is so perfect. So coming to the last question of this, and which is going to be related to the previous one, what is your advice then? Like, if I want to create a solution based on AI to change the way human works, if one piece of advice, two pieces of advice, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like what you mentioned, a lot of parallels to the last question. For one, just to preface, it's like I mentioned, it's becoming very easy for someone who's not a software engineer, not a data scientist, to build an AI API integration, to have an AI API integration with a no code web solution, which means the barrier to enter the market is only getting lower. So to stand out from the competition, again, very similar to the last question, I think it's going to come down to the accuracy and the
Yeah.
dependability of the AI. I think the future, and this is a part of the reason as to why you guys people are like 299, like nothing costs 299 these days. I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer that the future is AI based micro subscriptions, where
Mm,
it's low cost subscriptions for tools that are hyper specialized in one area, and they go real deep in it. They go real
mm,
deep in, a certain code base. And so for this, going really deep in Excel. So if you are thinking about building something, I would recommend going deep and being good at just one thing, because there are so many. I see it all the time. There are so many AI websites out there, especially around copywriting, that
mm.
this tool writes blogs, it writes advertisements and emails, it writes obituaries. I don't know, but like I would rather have a million rows of Excel formulas as opposed to a million rows of 10 different things. And so I'm a firm
Yeah,
believer of going real deep in one thing, and I think the future is AI micro subscriptions, and
absolutely.
try to be the first.
All right. That was couple of great advices, I think. And I can see that there's a friend of mine who's creating the similar story. But yeah, it's in the early stages, not with Excel, of course, but with the same
What's his
no
name?
code, low.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, no. I can because I can relate to your discussion and your advice is that yeah, there are people like you in the world who are trying to create an easy way out of many difficult things without writing a code. And I in my day to day, or not day to day, in fact, but weeks to weeks community discussions, I found out many people who don't have the knowledge of or the deep knowledge of artificial intelligence. Like myself, I'm not a machine learning expert or a data scientist by my day job, but yeah, having an interest into that, and as a developer or as a software engineer, I help other developers of other stack also to come up and start using the applied AI services. You don't need to be an expert in that area. So same goes for the no code experts as well, or low code experts. They are champions because they are thinking much much in a outer box way, or a way that a software engineer is not able to think, or they are thinking they are not creating those solutions because they may think that is different than what they could do. So yeah, everything. So in the crux that AI has been so democratized, and it is good that people are trying to create solutions in their own way, which is really good. Um,
Couldn't agree.
now, since Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I was just saying I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I think since we are at 30 minutes, and we would try to stop there, David, but it was really, really, really good to have you, first of all. And never knew that it was your first on the podcast. So we are like exclusive in these terms. And yeah, unfortunately, since we record in the Aussie time zones, because we are based over here, but and thank you for giving us time, although you are based in US. And I'm hoping that we will get a lot of questions for you. If we get, we will send them through your way. And thanks a lot for your time. And thanks to the listeners. So we will definitely get back to you with a new topic next month. Thanks again, David.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said earlier, I've answered several thousand DMs, tweets, and emails. And so if there's anyone else that wants to email me, ask me a question, or has any commentary, feel free to message Arafat, and he can pass along my information.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. All
Thank
right,
you.
guys. Thanks.
Have a good one.